Hello and welcome to the Brooks Breakthrough Podcast. I am your host, Ashley Brooks. Today I am joined by my friend Terri Mund, a real estate agent from Houston, Texas. Terri and I are both members of the Texas Realtors Leadership Program through the Houston Association of Realtors. In the time we've spent together over the last 6 months, I've learned things about her that inspire and motivate me in both my professional and personal life, and I hope her story will do the same for you. Terri is a loving wife and mother of seven. Yes, seven. After spending 3 decades helping her husband with two businesses, raising and homeschooling all seven of her children, serving in a variety of ways in her local church, Terri decided to get her real estate license in her 60s. She has only spent 4 years in the industry, but has already earned a broker's license and is outperforming a majority of her real estate peers in Houston. Terri is going to share her experience of serving and growing her family, the roller coaster experience of her family's two businesses, and venturing out on her own to start her own business later in life. Terri, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy that you are here.
Thank you. I'm excited.
Good, good. Well, let's jump into it, Terri. So, share a little bit of your background with us. Share where you're originally from, some about your family, and then what eventually led you into real estate.
Okay, well, I was born and raised in Georgia. I'm born in Atlanta, raised in Douglasville, a little town outside of Atlanta. And I moved to Texas in 1981. I transferred out when I was working for Shell Oil Company. I was like a level 2 clerk. So I'm like the lowest person they ever transferred anywhere. And they moved me out to Houston. And so I worked for them for about a year after that and then moved on to other things. Well, about 3 or 4 years after I moved to Houston, I met my husband. We started dating and we got married a year later. And then just a couple of months after we got married, we moved out to Wharton and started a business out here, a office supply business. And that grew and grew. And then we incorporated, as our kids grew up, we incorporated a moving company into that. So we had the two businesses that we were running. And then we also had, over that amount of time, we had 7 children. And yes, we did homeschool our kids. We loved that. And I loved being with them. I was an old mother, so I didn't have my first child until I was 30.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was an old mother and then had my last one when I was 43. So then I was a really old mother. And I loved being with my children. I loved having them around us all the time and having our businesses and working from our home primarily. We were able to be with them all the time, homeschool them. They worked with us. And then as they grew up and went to college and got their own careers and things, um, this was, many, many years into the businesses and stuff. And so as they grew up and left home, then we realized that we didn't want to have the hassle of trying to find and keep employees.
Mhm.
That was our biggest thing, was finding employees that we could trust and that would do, work as well as we were wanting them to work. Plus the hassle and just the stress. I think for me, I think Todd, my husband Todd, would probably still have those businesses if it weren't for me. I had gotten to a place where I was just completely overwhelmed and worn out running the two businesses. So we shut down the office supply business and just kept the moving business.
Mhm.
And then again, as our boys grew up, because they were our primary hands, we had those 5 boys and they were big, strong boys and hard workers. And so as they moved away and went to college and grew up and got married, um, we just, I couldn't handle all that stress anymore of trying to find workers and manage the business and homeschool the rest of the kids. And in hindsight, I look at it and I think, I was probably having my midlife crisis and hormones and menopause and everything else setting in where,
Yeah.
but I didn't recognize any of that. As far as I knew, I was on the verge of a breakdown. And, I basically, Todd and I just sat down and said, we can't continue this anymore. And so we shut down the moving business and Todd got a job. Um, from that point, that was about, I guess, maybe 7 years ago now. For the first 2 years after we shut everything down, we sold everything we had. We were in an enormous amount of debt, and that was another huge thing that just weighed on me day in and day out, was all that debt, and how in the world are we ever going to pay all this debt? So when we shut down the businesses, we sold everything. We had a building in downtown Wharton. We sold that. We sold our big house and all of our land. We sold all of our equipment. We sold everything and paid off debt pretty much, except for maybe $25,000. We were able to pay off everything.
And you, sorry to interrupt. So, okay,
Mhm.
when did you officially close the last business?
In 2015.
Okay, so 2015. I think you had told me at one time that you guys had $400,000 in debt. Is that correct?
Yep. Yep.
So from 2015, you guys started paying down all of that. And so once you sold everything, was that like a good year? How long did it
Uh,
take you to?
a good note to sell everything. We sold everything, fairly quickly,
Okay.
and got rid of a chunk of that debt. The rest of the debt from the businesses we just paid off this year.
Wow.
So to be able to completely eliminate all that debt took almost 15 years, right at 15 years. But we were bound to determine we were going to pay that off. We weren't going to walk from it. And thankfully, the businesses that we had still owed money to were so gracious to us and allowed us to pay it out as we could. And pretty much they set us up on a payment plan, and we just diligently and faithfully paid those payments for 15 years.
Wow.
Paid off. And then, I started real estate about 2.5 years after all that. For the first 2 years, I didn't do anything. We bought a little house out in the country, and I moved out here, and I still had three, excuse me, three of my sons were still home. And but they were grown and they were in college. One of them was still in high school, so I was still homeschooling him. And I didn't work. Todd took a job driving a truck, so he was gone a lot. And pretty much I had, one of my hobbies is quilting. So I pretty much made quilts and crocheted
Mm.
Afghans and things like that. So I did all my energies to that and just kind of let myself take some time, recuperate, heal, figure out, after about a year of it, I was like, I'm a people person. I need people, and I can't just hide out here in my house for the rest of my life. I had made quilts for all of my family, my brother, my brothers, my sister, my mom, dad, Todd's family, all of my kids. So I had made quilts for my friends. I mean, I just, there was only so many quilts I could make, and I was like, I need some people. So I had been interested in real estate for years, and over the years, we've bought and sold a couple of houses. And so I thought, this would be very interesting. And I always felt I had such a good relationship with my realtor. And I started taking my classes. And in the summer before I got my license, she passed away suddenly. My girl
Mm.
that I was hoping would be my mentor
Mm.
passed away. And so I was a little daunted, but at the same time, I was almost done with my classes. And so I kept on with it. And um, my broker and his wife, his wife is one of my dearest friends in the whole wide world. So I get to the privilege now of working with her every day and with him. And so they encouraged me to continue on. So I got my license. And right before, when I finished my classes, before I had scheduled my test, is when Harvey hit. And so I don't know if you're familiar with this area, but Wharton, a great portion of Wharton flooded in Harvey, and it was devastated our community. And so that was in September, and I got my license in December after that. So the first year or two of my license was after Harvey. So the community was still dealing from the aftermath of Harvey. And, um, there was hardly anything available for sale for the people that had flooded, and the homes that had flooded needed to be repaired and remediated and everything else. So, um, anyways, I think I'm probably rambling.
No. I'm letting you go. You're just telling your story. So you get in, there's not a lot of action. I know in real estate, for a lot of us, there's so much we don't know, and you don't know what you don't know. And so there's a lot of struggles in this business, and it's somewhere around between the 80 and 90 percentile or percent of agents who get started to quit in the first 2 years because it's just so difficult. So you had mentioned that your mentor passed away. Where did you get a lot of your knowledge? When we take the test, a lot of people don't know this. We study and cram and try to take in as much information as we can to pass the test to get our license. But a lot of that information doesn't actually help us grow a business because now once you get your license, like you are a CEO of your business and you are the sales team, you are the operations team, you're your assistant, all of that until you build and scale. So where did you learn to build the business?
Part of it, I just took the experience that I'd had for being in business for 30 years and my husband and myself running those businesses. But as far as the real estate business, my broker was very, very helpful in training me and um, answering my questions and throwing me leads and helping me get started in, the actual business part of it. And then as I would have transactions, the other agents that I was involved in were very helpful to me. The title companies were helpful. I mean, I just developed relationships with, the title company, the lenders, other agents, and just networking with them. And, people like to share their knowledge. And so I would just ask them questions. And, in the middle of the transaction, after the transaction, I would call them up, when I had a question about something or had heard something or read something. And they were just all very, very helpful in sharing their knowledge with me and giving me advice and um, just helping me to understand the other side of the business, the side from the title companies and the lender side. And, how does somebody get pre-qualified for a loan? I had no idea about any of that. In fact, the very first transaction I had a buyer and I contacted the selling agent and the listing agent, and I told her that I have an offer coming, and she said, "Okay, well, send me an earnest money contract, and we'll get going." And so I hung up the phone, and I was like, "What is an earnest money contract?" I'd never heard that term. It wasn't in any of my classes. It was a 1-to-4 family contract. I'd never heard it referred to as an earnest money contract. So I had to pick up the phone and call my broker and say, "They want me to turn in an earnest money contract. What is that?" So, I mean, I've asked some pretty dumb questions in my
But that's how
career.
you learn. And I think so many people get scared of asking dumb questions. And we have a lot of egos in this industry that'll make you feel stupid when you ask certain questions, which is very frustrating. But it's my encouragement is to always never be afraid of sounding stupid. Ask the question, and it's just a learning lesson.
Yes,
Because then after that, you'll realize why it sounds ridiculous. But so many people forget that you don't know what you don't know. We're almost
right.
just thrown into this industry and it's sink or swim.
Yes,
But
definitely is.
you had mentioned that you did a lot of HAR's classes. There was a lot that you took advantage of so many of their resources. Which of those in particular do you feel helped you the most?
Well, over the course of the last 4 years, I have taken almost 1,000 hours of education.
Oh, wow.
Um, my goal was to get my broker license, and in order to do that, I had to have 900 hours. And so, as I was getting that education, I was getting the designations that go with those because those offered the most hours.
Mhm.
And all during COVID, I mean, my business was horrible in COVID. There's so many real agents that just thrived during COVID. Well, out here in the rural area, mine was nothing. And so I took classes the whole time. I took classes and I got all those hours in. And I think if I could recommend any classes that give you great knowledge, it would be the first one was the GRI designation, taking that GRI, which is the Graduate Realtor Institute designation. And I think that might be a national designation. It's offered through HAR, but it's that one, it was like a 3 or 4 course designation with all different aspects of real estate involved. So that was so helpful. Plus, those classes were in person. When I took that, those classes were in person, and there was a lot of people in those classes, and they were at all levels of real estate. So hearing the questions that people were asking really was so beneficial. I think the GRI was a good one. The veteran, getting the one to help veterans, that was so beneficial to me because I had no idea. I knew there was a VA loan, and I knew that there were special programs available for veterans, but I didn't understand the whys behind that. So that was a really good one. Gosh, the accredited buyer rep, the seller representative specialist, all those just gave you focused education towards those transactions, those types of transactions. And though I had not maybe had, I had a veteran transaction, and of course I'd had seller and buyers, but to go into the deep, the things that, the things that were really, that how I really could assist them more than just, helping them, show them houses, and what is involved in a negotiation, what are negotiable items, and different ways, different leverages that you could have in a transaction. So
and I think there's a lot of power in that. So one, I believe we both agree that knowledge is power, right? So there was a lot that you took in, learned over the night, over those years, and now you're just running. And so tell us, when did it transition for you? When did business really start to pick up for you?
Probably, okay, so I'm finishing up I'm in my 5th year now. So probably in the middle of the 3rd year, or towards the end of the 3rd year, probably. So 1.5, 2 years ago. It's like I would feel like I was getting momentum. Before that, I would feel like I was getting momentum when I would have, 2 closings a month, 3 closings a month, things like that, which, my first year, I think I did $8,000 my first year. So, I mean, I had maybe had 2 or 3 transactions, and I was thrilled with that, but, it wasn't going to pay the bills.
Yeah.
So I think, probably 2 or 3 years in, and then it was just like, I would feel like I was going uphill, and then I would go months without having a closing, or a month and a half, and I'm thinking, well, this is not going to work. I need something regular. So just figuring out that I needed to persevere, do the things that I knew to do, I needed to be consistent in reaching out to people, and marketing myself, and what was effective to do that. And, I still haven't really gotten a good grasp on how to market myself, but I'm doing better.
Well, and it can be difficult because there's just so much, right? And so I have an issue with there's so many ideas that I get, and especially being on social media, it's like, hey, here's an opportunity, and so you just want to do them all, and you just then feel overwhelmed, and you either half-ass everything or you don't do anything because you're just in your head.
Yes.
And so it's interesting because it takes a lot of discipline to just focus on a solid like 3, 4 things that you have to do because you just want to do everything,
Yes,
and it's impossible.
it is.
And so right now you're your own team, correct? So you don't have any agents with you. Goal is to become a broker, correct?
I am a broker.
Okay, so you are officially a broker, but you want to build your own team eventually, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that you and I are both part of the Texas Realtor Leadership Program. And so there's a bunch of really, really great agents in this
Yes.
program. And we've learned so much from each other. And that speaks a little bit to, you mentioned earlier, just, being able to hear people's questions when you're in a room with people asking questions, saying things, there's so much knowledge that you get. What would you say have been maybe one or two of the biggest takeaways from that experience?
Oh gosh. They are some of the rock stars in real estate in that group and so inspiring. I have been amazed at how open the realtors are in there to share their secrets, I mean, there's because they just inspire you. They share. I think the biggest thing that has amazed me about all of it is we're all just real people. You
Mhm.
know, when we're sitting in a room together, we're all feeling inadequate and we're all feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm sitting in this room.
Yeah.
There's just, this is, you feel like you're able to sit at the table with the cream of the crop, but I I still struggle to feel like I belong there,
Mm.
and I know that I do, but it's just, oh my gosh, this opportunity has just, it has changed me in that my confidence level is higher. Um, I feel like the tools that I'm carrying around in my tool belt are effective tools now. And I'm more capable and ready to use them. I always felt like I had tools available. I didn't feel like I was trained to use those tools.
Mm.
Like if it was in a shop class, I mean, I know that's a power tool and I know what it can do. I'm not so sure I can do it,
Yeah.
And that's how this class has been for me. It's like taking those power tools that I know, I mean, I own them.
Mhm.
What do I do with them? And the speakers that have come in, um, I've been so challenged
Mhm.
mainly to do things like video. I mean, I have never wanted to do video, and I have dabbled a time or two here or there in it, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, that was awful.
Yeah.
But everybody just says, you just got to do it. You just got to do it. You
Yeah.
sound like you sound, you look like you look, that's reality.
Yep.
So,
And we heard that line that you look how you look and you sound how you sound. I think in the first event that we went to, and that one stuck with me. And
uh,
it's been interesting. I was talking to someone yesterday about this, about being a part of this program, because when you're around people who are doing really cool things, it motivates you to do really cool things.
yes,
And you realize that it's not actually as hard as it seems. One of the things in this program, and so if anyone has never heard of this program, I highly recommend you look it up. It's through the Houston Association of Realtors here in Houston. Every big city has a chapter, but so you have to apply for it, and they can only allow so many people. Our class only has 35. And so it's 35 people that grow, that get to learn a variety of ways to grow individually, grow their teams, scale their businesses. And so it just provides so many opportunities for you to grow in a variety of ways. And so I was talking yesterday about how, when you hear these people sharing the things that they do, you can't help but want to do really great things. And that's where this podcast started from. It's something I'd wanted to do, but put off in my head. I was just, making reasons as to why I wasn't ready or why I couldn't do it or whatever. And it was actually, there was one week, there was a coach that came in and he broke down a number of people's disc assessments and he broke down yours. And this is literally what spun this and kind of made me rip the band-aid off. Was you and I are similar in that we're really high S's, so we're very friendly people. And when you're a really high S, you care a lot about what other people think. And so there are times you either make decisions or don't make decisions based on how your people will feel. or people who have to experience it feel. And so one of the reasons I didn't want to start this was, oh, what if it doesn't sound right? What if it's not super clean? And if you listen to my first two episodes, I didn't have a proper mic. And so the sound was off, right? And like finally figured out, like, got a better camera. And so it just progressed. Like next year, this will look different than it does now. It's just a matter of starting. But when he made the comment to you that that your biggest challenge now that you're going to be a broker is in the way you handle your people, because you'll be so concerned with how they take certain decisions that you make. And that one hit me really hard that day. And so this, in addition to a number of other things I have had in my mind that I want to start, which are coming, was really the start of me ripping that band-aid off, saying, stop caring so much about people picking every little thing that you do apart. It's a learning lesson. You're going to get sharper. And so that's just one of a variety of ways that I like have been so challenged through this experience. And so it's going to be interesting to see, again, there's 35 of us, to see what all 35 of us look like next year, because it's going to be very different.
Yes.
From when we started in April.
Yes.
But I want to transition over to your family, because I know that there was a lot that obviously happened pre-real estate, and there's a lot that prepared you for real estate. And I love that you shared you had two businesses that kind of prepared you in certain ways for the role you're in now. But this is probably one of my favorite parts of your story, Terri, in that you had 7 kids, delivered them all at home, homeschooled every single one of them. And, I forgot to bring tissues. I was going to bring tissues here because I felt like this was going to make me emotional. And I haven't cried on this podcast yet. So if we cry today, it's going to be the first one. A few months ago, I had someone on who is a mentor of mine who shared about how she follows the Kardashians. And she follows them not because she likes like the mindless reality TV, but she follows them because she in particular really likes Kris Jenner. And the thing she has said is that you don't raise 2 billionaires by accident. There's a certain amount of discipline, intentionality that goes into that. Now, I know none of your kids are billionaires, and I know none of them are perfect, but you were so intentional in how you took care of your home and how you raised your children. And now, again, they're not perfect, but they've all gone on to do really great things. They're great leaders. They're building their own families. They have strong foundation. They've all done so well in school. And that doesn't happen by accident. So I want you to share some of that, because I know, again, being a mom, like there's just so much happening right now in society that it makes me scared as a mom. And so your story, I feel like, encourages parents to remember to be intentional, because what you do matters so much. So will you share some of that, kind of what that experience was like in raising your kids, raising a big family, and how you juggled all of that, because that is a massive job in its own.
Yes, of course. Well, I guess when they were little, we had help at the office. So all I did was have to pay the bills and handle the books. I had someone else that was helping Todd with the orders and things like that. So I was able to be home most of the time with them. And that was my thing, is I had to have, I had a schedule every day. I had a lesson plan for every kid. I had these notebooks on my table. Each kid had a notebook. And so I would have their lesson plan in there and all their work in there. And we had to schedule every day. They had to be up and have their beds made. And we were at the school table by 9 o'clock in the morning. And the little ones that weren't in school would play on the floor in the schoolroom, and so we had structure. And then they started school even whenever they got older and were in junior high and high school. We started school at 9 o'clock. And so then however long it took them to finish, that's how long we went. And we would have breaks throughout the day. We tried to do fun things. We took field trips with other homeschool families, and there were several homeschool families in our church. So we were able to network with them, and have Friday play days, or go to a field trip somewhere, or there were several big families in our church. So and their kids were around our kids' ages, and So our kids had built-in friends from church,
Mm.
they were all involved in the same sorts of things. We had people at church that taught music lessons. So the kids took piano, the kids took guitar, the kids took drum lessons. They had all these things that were available to us for that. So that was another aspect of our school, was the fine arts part. Um, and then as they grew up, they got involved and they got on the worship teams at the church, the children's worship team, the youth worship team, the adult worship teams, and um, even nurtured more their giftings and talents. And then as they went off to college and things like that, they've just continued in that. And um, there were times whenever I felt like I was probably too rigid in my schedule. But in order for me to have sanity with all those kids and those businesses, I had to have a structure, and I had to have from here to here, we're going to do this. And from here to here, we're going to do this. And every day those kids had their work. I had their workout for them every morning. And um, they had to finish that work. When they were finished with that work, they were done. If it took them an hour, I didn't care if it took them an hour or 5 hours. That was the work they had to do, and they had to finish it. And homeschool was all they had ever known. And that kind of my schedule was all they had ever known. They were very, they were easy kids to raise. They were, we'd always been around each other. So there was a respect there. There was um, a love and an admiration for each other, and they got along for the most part. We did have some quabbles, but
Yeah.
even today, they are very close. They get along very well. My baby's 22, my oldest is 35, and we just love being together, so
Mm.
the opportunity that we can get, we're together. And as that family has grown, as my kids have gotten married and had their own kids, I have 7 grandbabies now that, I just think I am more blessed than I could have ever dreamed
Mm.
that I would be blessed. It's like I just realized the other day, not only my son got engaged, my third to the youngest son got engaged
Mm.
last Friday night. And so, my daughter had a baby 2 weeks ago today. And so I'm just thinking our family is not just growing, it's growing deeper and it's
Mm.
growing wider.
Yeah.
As my kids get married, it grows wider. And as they have children, it's growing deeper. And it's the coolest thing ever. I love it. I love being a Mimi. I love being a mama. I love being a wife. And I love being a realtor. I have met so many great people, my clients, my colleagues, um, people in programs like TRLP, like I would have never met you, had it not been for this program.
Yeah.
And I love that that's how God grows us, is through other
Mhm.
people and through our experiences in our life.
Yeah. My husband and I, our word is legacy. Like for us, we just want to build legacy. And he threw that word at me years ago, I think when we were possibly engaged, maybe just still dating. And so it stuck with me. And one of the things that I think of, like when I see you post pictures of your entire families, I just think legacy. And so we only have one daughter right now, but I'm like, man, like part of legacy is having a big family. I heard one time that if you want to create legacy, you plant a tree, you write a book, you have a child, just because that helps you last. So I've told my husband, I was like, man, we really got to get to work because I'm 33. He turned 40 this year, and so I'm like, all right, we got to spit a few more. I have 2 max right now with our ages. We'll spit out 2 more, hopefully. But yeah, just because we want that, right? I'm one of 4. My daughter's the only grandkid in the family. One couple has been married. They're hopefully they'll get pregnant next year or 2. Another one just got engaged. Another one's single, and so it's nice to see how we're growing. But man, we're ready for more nieces and
Yeah.
nephews. Just
Yes.
in having everyone together and the craziness, but like the beautiful craziness that it is. Because I imagine when you have the entire family over, it's just loud and chaotic, but amazing all at the same time.
It is. It is. There's been nothing more fulfilling in my life
Yeah.
I remember the minute that they laid Carrie on my belly after she was born, I just had this feeling that stuff. This is what I was created for.
Mm,
I was
yeah.
created to reproduce
Yeah.
and to be a mother and to raise this child. And I couldn't think of any more perfect calling, you know. I love it.
Well, share a little bit about how the kids took part in the business. Because I love that they were able to jump in as employees very early on and learn good work ethic. So,
Yeah.
how early did that start? And did each person have different roles? What was that like?
Well, the early ones were, I remember when Mitchell was 2 years old and Brian was a newborn, and we worked out of this little bitty 800 square foot, 2-bedroom house. And that was our office, that was our warehouse, that was everything. And Todd would leave in the mornings to go. He had to go to Houston to pick up the office supplies and things in order to deliver them to our customers. And he was barely 2 years old, and he would stand at that front door just wailing, I want
Mm.
my Toddio. He wanted to go with him so badly. So I started letting Mitchell go with Todd on those trips to Houston. So Todd would slap him in his car seat, take him to the warehouses he went to in Houston, get him out, let Mitchell carry a little box, or let him participate in the loading
Yeah.
of the stuff. And then he would take him with him on deliveries, and the customers just loved that here's this little 2-year-old boy bringing in their stuff.
Oh, I'm sure.
So then we added kids, they just would go with Todd on deliveries. And then when we got our warehouse downtown, our oldest is Mitchell, and so he was probably, gosh, 8 or 10 years old. And we made him the warehouse manager. So it was his
Mm.
job to make sure those boxes were straight in that warehouse, and to make sure that the same kind of things were put together, and organized. And he thought he was it. So that was his thing. And then as they grew older and we got the moving business, then they became, managers of crews in the movie business. And
Mm.
so, they would manage the younger brothers or the other employees. We had a bunch of homeschoolers, like I said. So those homeschool boys they were our go-to employees.
Yeah.
So it would be our boys, and then their best friends would make the teams. So we could sometimes have 2 or 3 teams of movers going at one time.
Oh, wow.
Todd would have a team, and Mitchell would have a team, and Brian would have a team. And so, and people just raved. I mean, we had, we never got a bad review.
Mm.
They, but our kids were hard workers, and they had good work ethics. And,
Yeah.
um, they took pride in their job, and it showed, and their
And you
friends
don't
took
see
pride.
that a lot.
No, and another thing is we paid them more than they would have ever made working anywhere else.
Yeah.
We didn't, I mean, from the time, like, Robert was probably 2 years old, and we had one of our trucks had this automatic lift gate. And so Robert's job was to stand on the back of the truck and push the button to lower and raise that lift gate. So he thought, he loved it. So they needed him. So when he would see them coming, he would lower that lift gate. And then as they got things on there, they would say, okay, Robert, and he'd push the button, the lift gate would go up. So they were all involved in it. And,
Yeah.
they had to learn to work together. That has really helped them in their careers, because they know how to work with people.
Yeah.
They know how to work and even from young ages, they knew how to interact with adults. They knew how to interact
Love
with
that.
kids, just growing up in that atmosphere. So they
Yeah.
are, I'm very proud of them. They're all doing very well in their chosen careers. And so
Yeah.
I'm really proud of them.
That's awesome. So again, my daughter's 3, and so we don't fully incorporate her in everything yet. But when she was a baby, so she spent the first week in the NICU. And so my husband, we'd go in there every morning and he'd start with a few verses from the Bible, some scripture, and then he'd go into a real estate book and just
Yep.
redo it. And so even now, like there are times where we've gone to go see investment properties and we take her with us, or there were a few times when she wasn't in daycare and my husband was working, so I would take her. I really tried not to do that as much as possible, just to be professional. But there were times that I would take her on showings with me, and like my clients, I did it with clients I felt comfortable doing that with. and they would love her. They'd hold her hand and they just love
Yeah.
playing with her. And so it was nice. It's been nice to somewhat incorporate her a little bit. We look forward to doing it over the years. We were joking this morning, like, man, what could we pay her to do so we can start putting money in a Roth IRA for her? Like, what
Yes.
task can we give her at 3 that we could pay her for?
Yes.
Um, so it's been fun. But so I want to transition now to a segment I like to call the 4 W's. I'm a big believer that we are what we consume. So be that through media that we watch, what we listen to, what we read, and then the people we hang out to, because the things that they say, the energies that they feed off, come onto us. So for the first one, when it comes to what are you watching? I mean, do you watch TV? What kind of content do you watch online? What does that look like for you?
I watch a little bit of TV, mostly, after 6 or 7 at night. I don't watch a lot of news. Um, I I watch things that are kind of no-brainer TV, like reality shows or competition shows, that kind of thing that where, you know, I don't really have to think a lot. Kind of turn my brain off and
Yeah.
chill in front of the TV. But I just a few shows on TV. I don't really watch a whole lot, like, The Voice and things like that,
Yeah.
where it's totally entertaining, not I don't have to think.
Yeah. After a long, stressful day, that makes sense. What
Mhm.
what are you listening to? Do you do a lot of music? Do you do podcasts, audiobooks? What does that look like?
I don't listen to a whole lot of stuff, but when I'm in the car, I usually don't have anything on. I'm usually
Hmm.
just, me and, I'll pray or I'll think about through where I'm headed or what I'm going to
Mhm.
do or things like that. I don't want a whole lot of noise in my head. If I'm on a
Interesting.
long trip or, even like heading into Houston or something, I'll put on a worship CD and
Yeah.
just calm myself, prepare myself, you know,
Yeah.
emotionally, spiritually, mentally, to just kind of be ready for whatever's coming at me. And like when I went up to Sweetwater when my granddaughter was born 2 weeks ago, I listened to a book. So, and I listened to it until I found myself almost falling asleep. I was like, okay, dude, I need something else. So,
Yeah. That's funny. Well, so with books, what are you listening to? What are you reading?
I'm in the middle of a couple of books right now that were recommended to me through the TRLP program. The Gap in the Gain.
Hmm.
And let's see who that's by. Dan Sullivan and Dr. Ben Hardy. That is really good. That's basically whenever you're looking at your things that are happening in your life, do you look at them like here's the where you're starting and here's where you're thinking you're going to go, and here might be where you are when from your perspective of how you're viewing where you're at in that. Are you looking at the gap of what's left? I'm just never going to make it. I'm always, um,
Mm.
looking at it from a negative, from the gap part of it, or are you looking at it from the gain? This is what I've already accomplished. This is what we have already done, you know,
Mhm.
especially like in our debt thing. We had to keep looking at, we have already done this. We just have this. Or I could focus on this and say, man, I'm never going to pay that off. I feel
Mm.
like it's just an unattainable goal and live out of frustration. So that book has really helped me to put that into words of and to keep ever mindful of how am I looking at this? Do I look at this as what I have left to do or what have I
Mhm.
already done? So from the TRLP program, the first session they encouraged us about writing goals, write our goals down, put them in front of us. If you don't write something down, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Or if you might accomplish a few goals if you're thinking them in your head, but if you write something down. So I came home and I wrote down my goals. And every now and then in January, I'll make resolutions or something, but I would never follow through with them. I would do a gung ho for a couple of months. And so I wrote down my goals and I'm looking at them now. And out of 10 goals, I've already accomplished 7 of them this year.
Get
So I
it.
keep looking at that to say, I'm
Mm.
out of debt. I paid off all this debt, and that happened this year. And,
Yeah.
I became a broker. I had a goal to become a broker, and I wanted to finish my education to become a broker. I did that, and I had this amount of transactions that I want to get done for the year. And I've done that already, so I'm like,
Mhm.
next year I got to set that goal bigger, you know. So just things where, look at things from the gain rather than the gap. And another one that I'm reading is The Promise to the One. And
Mm.
that one is so good because it's like you can give your word to so many people. You can decide you're going to do so many things, but the promise to the one is, what are the things you're promising yourself
Mm.
that you're going to do or that you're going to accomplish, or who you are? Who do you believe you are? And promise commit to yourself. That's how I'm going to see myself. I am not going to believe these negative things. I'm going to believe these positive things because that's who I am.
Yeah.
This is what I can do, and this is what I can accomplish. Um, and when I just finished, that was an easy read, but um, I think Jennifer Wahab, the past president or chairman of the HAR, gave me this book. It's called The Go Giver,
Mm. Yeah.
and it is so good. It's just this. I'll go into every situation with how can you make that situation better? How can you bless that person? How can how can you go the extra mile? And that was really challenging and encouraging for me. Um, Gosh, what's another book? Um, oh, I know. Kirk Weisler, in our first session,
Mm.
he gave an example from what is it? The Hidden Messages in Water. And
Mm. Yeah.
and I ordered that book and read that book, and it's just amazing that speaks to the power of your words. I mean, I was born and raised in a Christian family. I know scripture, and I know that life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Mm-hmm.
I've known that my entire life. My mother has told me that my entire life, you know. But just to have this book to say the hidden messages in water, where they have documented the way that water, when frozen, actually changes based on negative or positive words or thoughts, even, you know? And
Yeah.
it's amazing to see that in reality and to just say, this is, whenever God says life and death is in the power of the tongue, that is
Mm.
a truth that's not just about our emotional spirit to be hurt
Yeah.
by someone's words. It's truth.
Yeah.
God spoke the word into existence. He spoke everything that is into existence. And, that was done through messages,
Yeah.
verbal messages. So,
And the power that he gives us, like that's one of the takeaways. Like he didn't just keep that power for himself, he gave that to us as well.
yes,
I
yes.
told my sister about that book one time, and she was like, oh my goodness. She said that she had heard about it. She's like, yeah. She's like, I talk to my plants. She's like, I may sound crazy, but she's like, she'll tell her plants, please grow
Yeah,
beautifully. Even if I don't take care of you the way that I should, please come out delicious
yeah.
to some of the fruit or the food that she plants. And she's just like, I'm so grateful when it does, because I know I'm not the best gardener, and I don't take care of it the best. So
Uh-huh.
I've loved that. But even with our daughter at night, like the last thing we do is just, you have to speak truth over yourself. So our saying every night is, um, what is it? I'm bold, I'm brave, I'm courageous, I'm strong, I'm fearless, I'm wise, I'm kind, I'm humble, I'm loved. God made me, Jesus saved me, Holy Spirit helps me, Daddy and Mommy love me. And it's been really sweet because we've done that for over a year now. And so she'll go, like when we go spend the night with family, like a few months ago, she was looking at my sister, like she told my sister that. And she like looked at her, and my sister started to get teary eyed. And then like she was done with that sister, and she's like, all right, Aunt Megan. And then she told Aunt Megan, and it was just like, and she says it in that order. And so sometimes she'll do it to my husband and me at night. She'll come and she'll look at us and she'll tell us. And it's just like, oh man, there's so much power. And just like, oh, thank you for speaking that truth over me, because our mind likes to tell us lies.
Yes.
And that we're not those things. Um, so I just love
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But so when you look at if you looked at the people you choose to hang out with. I know you hang out a lot with your family, but so people that you choose to hang out with, and if you looked at all of their similar characteristics, what would be a common characteristic that you see?
Well, I think, as I was thinking about that question, I thought, my goodness, I live such a sheltered life. I've grown, compared to like people's stories that I hear in TRLP, just listening to people's lives and people that I meet in the world and listening to their lives and how they grew up. And I think, oh my gosh, I have been so sheltered from so much, Um, but thinking about my friends and who I saturate my time with, I'm still sheltered. My dearest friends, there's three of us that have lunch every Wednesday, and we have for probably 5 or 6 years now. Started out six of us, and it's down to three of us, or four of us total. There's three other girls and me. And we call ourselves the Spittin' Littles because back in the day they had spitting little benches, and all the men in the town would get together on the spitting little benches and whittle and chew their tobacco and spit and solve all the problems of the world. So we do that in our little Wednesday lunches. We laugh and we cry, and but thinking about them, we share a faith. We all share the same faith. We are all married, long-term married. I'm probably the shortest married one in the group, and I've just celebrated my 37th anniversary. So they inspire me. They encourage me in my marriage. We talk about everything. We talk about our family. We talk about our children, our husbands, our people that we come in contact with, our work. We just talk about everything. And that, we share that in the marriage thing. We share that. We all have larger families, so we share that. So I think that's probably the biggest thing is, and even in my greater group of friends, pretty much I share a faith with them, and in my new friendships in TRLP, I'm sharing faith with them. We all have a faith. We may not all believe exactly the same, but we all have faith, and we have faith in a greater being. And I share that with them. I connect with them on that level, and I think that's pretty cool, where I might not believe exactly like they believe and agree with everything they believe in, but we're able to connect in that belief in a greater being, So I think those are the big things, the level that I connect on people on faith,
Got it. Okay. I'm going to ask you to speak to two groups now. So I want you to share any last words of encouragement to two groups. The first one's going to be to agents or people looking to become real estate agents. Maybe they're looking to become, or they just got started. What advice do you have for them?
Probably the same thing I've been telling my kids their whole lives is you can do anything you set your mind to. And that's truth. I know I was told that all my life, and I hear that all the time through all different areas, but you truly can. If you set your mind to something, you commit your way to something, and you put your focus and your energies towards that, you can accomplish anything, whether it's getting your real estate license or building your business or getting out of debt or raising kids. That's your focus. You commit yourself to those things, and you can do anything. There's nothing that stops you but yourself. I remember before I moved to Texas, I was working at Shell, and this lady that was not my immediate supervisor, but a supervisor of the group beside us, and we were at a Christmas party, and I was bad mouthing Shell right and left. And they just, here I am. I'd quit college. I had no real education, and I thought I could do any job in that building. I was very full of myself. And I'm sitting at that table at that Christmas party, just bad mouthing Shell, saying I could do your job. I could, they just would let me loose. I could do that. Da, da, da. And she looked at me and she said, Terri, you are your biggest obstacle. The only thing that's not Shell keeping you from being any of those things or doing any of those jobs is yourself. You are your biggest obstacle. You're so arrogant. You're so full of yourself, and you're not willing to learn or to be taught anything. You think you know it all, and And I was like, oh, that made me so mad. I remember I got up and I left the whole party, went home crying, and I was literally sobbed all night long. I was like, she is right. That hit me between the face, that I recognized that I, in my arrogance, thought that I could do anything, but I was not willing to do what needed to be done to
Mm,
be who I thought I should be.
yeah.
I didn't want to go to school, and I didn't want to do this, and I didn't want to do that, and I didn't need this. And all that, you know, was what was standing in my way, is myself.
Mm,
So, I believe if we set our minds to anything, we can accomplish it.
that's good. What advice would you give to moms and wives? Because right now we have women who, and we're juggling a lot. And yesterday I got to share with someone, just man, help me. My mind gets clouded a lot. So many things I want to do, but it's also, man, I really want to be a great wife. I really like, my first thing is like being a great wife, being a great mom, and taking care of that part of my home, right? And then the other stuff is extra. So what advice can you give to women who are in that situation right now, juggling everything and want to give as much to their family as they can?
I think the hardest part of all of that is setting boundaries.
Mm.
You have to make your priorities, and then you have to, your husband is the most important person in your life, and they've got to know that. But more importantly, you've got to know that.
Mm.
And you've got to make that a priority and purpose in your heart that that's going to be a priority. And, you know, take care of him, however that looks like, whether that's taking care of your home and fixing him meals, or if that's spending time with him. My husband's a time person. He doesn't, I can cook and I can do his laundry and I can do all that. He doesn't care. He wants me to sit by him and hold his hand, you know?
Same.
So and that to me is the opposite of me. I'm a doer. I'll clean your house. I'll wash your clothes. I'll cook your clothes. I'll cook your meals. I'll wash your car. I'll put gas. I'm a servant,
Yeah.
So let me serve you. That's how I show love, is serving you. Well, to sit and hold hands is like a waste of time. I'm thinking, man, I could be doing this and this and this and this and this, but he needs that. So I do that, I've got a purpose in my heart to do that. Same thing with your children. Your children are the biggest investments you will ever make in your life.
Mm.
And that there's more satisfaction and more heartache that comes in raising children
Yeah.
than any job you will ever have. You can, in fact, I told my daughter this, that's got the 2-week-old baby, just last week. I said, you have the rest of your life to work. Your daughter she needs you now 100%,
Yeah.
and she's going to need you until you launch her out into the world. So, you got the rest of your life to make money. There's more important things in life than making money, you know?
Yeah. No, I
Gotta
appreciate
have
that.
it, but there's more important things than making money.
Yeah. Well, I'll end it there. Tell us, where can people find you, Terri?
Oh my goodness. I'm on Facebook and Instagram, and my website's terrimund.com. My email's terrimund@yahoo.com. Do you want my phone number?
No, you don't have to do that. But I will add that information that you just provided in the details below in case anyone wants to connect with you. Terri, thank you so much for your time and for sharing your words of wisdom, your story. I hope that it is encouraging to those who listen.
Thank you. I've loved it. This is so special. I appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too.